Well, we grew up in a typical two-story house on Red Island, and most everything centred around the kitchen because that's where the stove was. It was always in our house. It was not like a magic moment. It was always there. Mom always had a mat set up in the kitchen. The kitchen was the centre of activity. She'd have a mat set up, so she'd hook that for a while. Then she'd cook something, and then she'd start knitting. She'd go back to the mat. She would then go down, spread the fish, and make the hay. And so she was multitasking with everything. So it was always an ongoing mat set up in our house.
And she's going to need to fix that. So, you know, just and draw your straight line and then do the rest of your floor. But that's not a problem at all.
That's the wall, that's the floor there, see, so.
Yep, perfect. Okay.
I had always wanted to do a collection of rugs around women, right? And the Beaumont Hamel experience was such a good one, and what you could see community developing. You could see women knowing each other differently. Though we knew each other in the choirs, it was really interesting to kind of to see the friendships that were evolving as we went through that project. So Marie was a good friend of a number of us.
Okay, well, I started this when I came down here to the gallery with my sister-in-law, who's a painter, and she wanted to go around and see all the galleries. So we came down here, and Laura was here, and we were talking about the mats, and she just mentioned that this was a project that may be ongoing. So I thought to myself, I really love Marie, so I thought, now I'll try and do one. And this one is sort of women helping women.
And Marie died in July 2008, and you know, I can remember coming out of the night before her funeral. There was a kind of a celebration of her life at Presentation Convent, and I remember walking out and saying to Helen Murphy, who I was with at the time, and who became involved in that project, said, you know, I think the time is right now to do that women's project, and I think we need to do it in honor of Marie.
Well, a good friend of ours, yours and mine, and many of us here, Marie Ryan, died this year, and I guess after she died, I was so aware of, and as we had the vigil the night before her funeral, I became so aware of all the wonderful things that she did in her life, and mostly behind the scenes and very quietly, and that most people didn't know about. And I talked about this to Frances and a few others, and from that, I know Frances then told me that she had already been thinking about all the women who do, ordinary women who do extraordinary things, and I was thinking Marie Ryan is definitely one of these women. And I was trying to find something that would kind of express that, and it just happened that I became, through one of Barbara's friends actually, came in for a visit one day, one of the sisters, and I realized it was the 175th anniversary when the Presentation Sisters came over to Newfoundland. And these were 4 women who came over from Ireland.
A window up there. Yeah.
That's really, really tight, right? That's heavy.
And that was how it started. So a group of us came together to talk about what it might look like, and then we kind of put the word out, and some of the women who were involved in the Beaumont Hamlet project were also friends of Marie, so they came in, and then, as I said, other women came involved as well who were also friends of Marie. And we just gathered and said, well, okay, what will be the theme of this? We knew that somehow we wanted it to honor Marie and her life. And then it was decided that it would be women's lives, women's stories. So we saw Marie as an ordinary woman who did extraordinary things.
We used to live on this little island, and we were all resettled. I'm sure you all heard the resettlement program. Everybody had to leave the islands. And that was a typical scene, the houses being towed.
Always in my head, the famous 5, kind of different ways it had come out over the years, but when this kind of idea came about, I said, geez, wouldn't it be nice if I just put my own famous 5 in there?
So, the very last day we were leaving, the boat was coming for us at 12 o'clock. Couldn't find Mom anywhere. And she was freaking me out because I couldn't find her. The boat was here. This is where I found her, down on the point. And this is where Dad used to tie up his boat.
I guess when you're younger, you kind of really don't know what these people do because you're oblivious to everybody else's state. But I always remember her being around, being very kind to all of us. And then she did a lot of talks with me and my 2 sisters about HIV and the prevention of HIV. So that kind of always stood out in my mind.
As her anguished sobs traveled across the quiet cove, I watched her raise her head and gaze out over the horizon. Once a stage for her dreams and fantasies, it was now foreboding and uncertain. Where would this new life take her? Would she still have her old friend, the sea, to tell her secrets to? Would she have a garden as rich and full as the one she grew with such pride on the island? What storms awaited her? Imparting a few more salty tears to her salty friend, she slowly rose, gathered her kin, burned her boat, and left the eye of the hurricane of resettlement.
I wouldn't put it right so it's right down.
No, we were thinking like, yeah.
Let that be the bottom.
So yeah, that be the bottom
Your
line.
bottom line. Yes, more, maybe.
Okay, so really what we would have is something like this.
Yes.
This would be our dimension.
We were hardly finished. Women's lives, women's stories. In fact, we weren't finished it, but we were coming close to the end of that, and women were saying, okay, what's our next project going to be, right? And actually Laura, who runs the Five Island Art Gallery, came up with this idea that, you know, the Festival of the Sea is happening, and the Festival of the Sea is a cultural, economic kind of exchange between Ireland and Newfoundland and Southern Shore and Southeast Ireland. And she came up with the idea, why don't we do something about our Irish connections?
What I'm going to do is just introduce the mats and their groupings, and then people are going to sing the songs that Marion has put together around them, and we'll just go like that. So it'll be a little bit of a practice. So I'd like to, you know, I would introduce, of course, Marion, who did the arranging of the songs, and Barbara and Helen, who started off the singing, but we probably wouldn't do that introduction of singers at the beginning on the 16th, because there'd be all of you unless we introduced everybody, which I suppose would be okay, but practice your curtsies. So, in the beginning, this first section of mats, of which we only have 2 here tonight, is really about roots and tradition. It's a group of mats about language, tradition, the going away, the mixing and the melding, and the coming home. And it starts with Falta. Irish was spoken by many on the Avalon Peninsula as late as the early 1800s. And this mat speaks of the openness and warmth of the Irish people. And it's a description that visitors often use about people in Newfoundland.
Welcome
everybody. Thank you for coming to the lounge. I just realized I should have probably practiced this before now. 5 minutes ago when I thought about it. So I just want to tell you a little bit about how the project came about. So we did a project last year about hooking and women who are inspiring to us. So I thought about for this year, I wanted to be try to be part of the Festival of the Sea, where the Irish people come over here and we go over to Ireland. And so I kind of thought about how could we connect some rugs to our Irish heritage. So that's where I came up with the idea, and I threw it out to the group, and everybody seemed to like the idea. And so now what we're going to do is sing about the rugs that we've come up with. There's a bit of a narrative and a slideshow, so I want you to enjoy the presentation and take it away. Any members loading?
I'm holding a beautiful looking book in my hands. It's called Hooking Our Heritage, Irish Connections Rug Hooking Group. It's filled with amazing rugs that tell the story about the linkages between Newfoundland and Ireland. And later this month, Hooking Our Heritage exhibit is off to New Ross, Ireland for an exhibit there. Sheila, tell me a story about something that's in this book that touches you.
Well, I can tell you about our rug.
Yeah.
I was involved with two of my friends, Eileen and Jerry, in the Mummers rug. We wanted to be original, so I'm in a group of women, and we've been together for 35 years. So we all went up to the country and dressed up for the Mummers, took pictures, and from those pictures came the rug. So each one of those people in the rug is an actual person that I know, you know?
These are story rugs, and they represent something that is critically important to the individual or the individuals who are involved in the production of that rug. And so we came together thinking about what it is that we wanted to say about our Irish Newfoundland connections. So each person came together, came with a different perspective, a different thing that they wanted to talk about and present in the rugs.
Of course, is someone from Flanker Press is just going to come up and talk about the kind of Flanker Press side of it, and then I was going to come up and introduce, I guess, talk a little bit about the project and how it came about, and then I was going to bring it in for the group to start. And I guess I want to thank Flanker Press, especially for doing the book, and some of the people in the group, and I guess right here is all the rug hookers, just so you know, if you want to get your book signed, they're all around here.
Over the last number of years, there's been lots of work done in the certainly art community and in the craft community, looking at things like themes like, you know, from the floor to the wall, exhibits around, you know, the movement of the rug from a practical piece to an art piece.
This next one, Eva May and the Pig. Eva May Parsons Barrett worked as the Jubilee Guild field worker. And in the 30s, you know, she was traveling all over Newfoundland during the Depression, teaching skills that women could make things to help their families, but could also probably bring in some work. And those who are teachers, you know, but she had to do her work wherever it was that was available. And in this case, it was out in the garden with the pig.
Talent, inspiration, colour, concentration, workmanship, dedication, you name it, the quality of the work that they display to us. This group really believes in what they do.
Pulling up the whole with your other hand. Sorry.
So I find it easier to roll it a little bit.
The idea of being able to, you know, exhibit internationally, and to exhibit these particular rugs that we felt very strongly would have some connection with the people who were there. They were certainly connected with our souls, because we were telling some of our story about our connection with Ireland. And indeed, they did connect. I mean, we imagined that was going to happen, and to watch people going around when we had the public reception, and other individuals had come in the daytimes to look at the rugs, and you could see sometimes on people's faces, you know, that they were really drawn to particular things. They knew the story, they understood what it was, and they saw the connection. They could see maybe images of themselves, maybe it resonated with a piece of their story.
All of the receptions that were put on for the Festival of the Sea, but they certainly made the rug hooking group a big part of it. You know, it was led by the City Hall, the town councils, and then particularly our own public reception that was offered for our rug hooking exhibit. And we were overwhelmed with the response. The warmth of our welcome is something that we will never forget. It was just the interest that the people paid to us, to our rugs, to what we were doing. And it was a genuine interest, you know, a lot of encouragement, and please come back, and maybe we can share in other projects in a different way. And we were just delighted to hear that.
What I want to do is work away at
No.
the sky.
Yeah.
Well, what do I do? I just put it down any
Are you
more.
right? You're right-handed.
You
Then
put-
you skip a couple, and then you just make a hoop. You pull it up and you make a hoop.
Oh, I see. You don't do the single
We
anymore.
don't do the knot at all.
No, you don't do it.
I think we've met a group of the most wonderful people that I have come across for an awful long time. People who are warm and, you know, really down to earth. The rug hooking is something that I hadn't any experience of, and after trying a stitch or two in Dungarvan on Saturday, and I have a profound admiration for their skills and the things, and the work is absolutely wonderful.
See, the thicker your material is, the probably the more that you can skip. We call it rug hooking.
You call it rug hooking.
Hooking rugs, right?
I did this.
Yeah.
All that. All that. I don't have to do it.
They held a workshop in Carrick-on-Suir yesterday, and some of the kids who came down, you know, got such wonderful enjoyment and insight out of it that, you know, it's great. It's a skill that we have, if we ever had it, we have completely lost it. So it was great to see those things revived again.
If I get to work, I got my strips all cut, I've got my picture drawn up. Well, very first, before any of that, I had to get an idea. Because everything starts with an idea, doesn't it? And I have to start and say, why am I going to do this? What good is that kind of art? What am I making it for? Why is it important? There is a back.
There was one little boy in particular, his name was Sean. Everybody was supposed to just hook one or two little loops, and the girls were saying, Sean, you got to give someone else a chance. And he said, no, he said, I have this whole thread and I'm going to finish the thread. And he just loved it. And another little girl said, is there any way I can get a little piece of this and start my own mat? It was really like wildfire with them. They were really excited.
Next to it. Perfect. One more, and then I'm just. And you feel the hook there? Yeah. Sort of hook the material over that.
As part of the exhibit, one of the things that we did was we sang to a group of, I think they were whatever age they are when they're just making their first communion. So all the kids came in and they were so enthused with the rug hooking, and they all gathered around the frame that Maxine had, and they all wanted to hook the mat. And then we sang to them, and we actually taught them the verse that one of the Marion Council wrote a verse that around hooking our heritage. So we taught them that, and they all sang it. And
The music, I mean, Alan Ricketts and the Ennis sisters and those, they have echoes of Irish music, and yet they have, you know, it's very definitely their own, and the stamp of Newfoundland is on it.
Oh, Newfoundland, I know that you'll always be.
The whole trip to Ireland was a fabulous experience, because we not only did we have the honor of hanging the mats and having the exhibit there with the Ross tapestries, which is incredible. The whole trip of staying with people and being billeted with people enabled you to feel much more connected, and people were so accommodating and so nice, and it was a great bit of fun.
Picked up on that one, haven't you? Well, I came to Hearts Content 10 years ago, and I like the people here, I like the community, I like the feeling you have here. It's a very, very nice, warm feeling among the group and among the residents that are here. Just pull them up through the other way and cut them off.
And maybe we'll do it because it got the shade in it too, look. So we'll use this instead of this. Okay.
I couldn't wait to, I enjoyed doing it. Every time I sat down, I took up my mat and hooked, and I really enjoyed it, and now I can't wait to continue. My second one, I hope, will be better than my first.
So we got his shirt, his jacket, his hat, the things on the boat. Yeah, now we got to get the... Okay, so
my daughter had done a rug a few years ago. It was the first one that she had done, and she presented it to me as a gift. And it was all about my children as they grew up, or the story behind it was my mother-in-law rather. And so there I got the idea, well, maybe I'll do that someday. So then she became involved rug hooking in St. John's, and she brought it back and forth, and then I said, well, why can't we do that? Maybe I should get some people together and do it. And we had received some applications from government, wondering what we were going to do if we applied for some money. And it came about with my 4 co-workers and I, and we pulled it together. We applied for the financing, and my daughter got involved then, very much so, because she helped us too with the application and everything, and numerous work she's done for us. But lo and behold, we came up with a group. And as you see today, I think we have 29 members now, and they're still building. Everybody's enjoying it, and they're doing a great job.
This one here is a picture of the area where I was born and raised. This here is the house. This is our shed. And this is the best that I can remember where my grandparents lived. And we live in an area called the Back Way. And I remember coming across the back way to the well in my grandfather's garden carrying water. Well, I'm not finished this yet.
No, you're not finished,
and
that we know.
I have to take out my green on the front, so this will change. But, you know.
But it's fairly tidy. You've tied all your ends in, which is good.
Pretty much, yeah.
And this, but you know, when you do one, the second one is going to be
well, you're going
much
to learn
neater
as
and
you
everything
go
else. You
along.
learn as you go.
I've learned even 2 or 3 things since yesterday. The well's got a special meaning for my older sister. She was carrying water one day and she happened to lean too far forward and she fell in.
And how are you going to hook this? And how is it going to look like a cloud? But after I had a little spell at it, it blended in very, very nicely.
Yeah. But she caught on the rocks and a man was going by and got her back up again. So we were kind of scared after that, but we did it. We had no choice.
All right, so you'd want just all this?
Just all that.
And with the person putting money in?
Yeah.
Okay.
And take this away.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So you can, just take the pole out. You can leave the rest.
Yeah, okay. And then with the Ireland one, there was always the excitement of showing over in Ireland, possibly going there, right? And then, the stories around the connections and that sort of thing. And that changed it again, right? And then getting to know some of the women that have come through it each time even more has changed it as well. There's a real camaraderie with each group that's growing and growing. Right, so and that's just really interesting. Now the Heart's Content one it's different again. There's a whole other set of women, and they are pretty gung ho. They really have got me going, right? So, little bit over the shed. This actually steam from something. Okay. So I'm just not making it real clear.
Yeah. Make it steam.
Put a puff of smoke coming out.
Yeah.
Okay, so first we had the engine. I was going the other direction. Mm-hmm. So what I did was I traced it out in the back. Well, once again, it's different for each person. It depends on their level of experience in any sort of art, right? But I mean, if you take someone who's never even drawn before, and they've come with with an idea, and have to kind of figure out how to compose it, there's always a sense of amazement from the person that I feel particularly gratifying, right? But it's exciting to see them see their idea kind of come to life in a way that they're not used to. And generally, they, if they keep up with it, they get better at, composing their ideas themselves, or coming up with more constructed idea. But when you see that happen and people are so excited about it, it really is quite gratifying and exciting, and when, like I said, when they see their idea come to life and actually be put on the burlap, and then as they hook it, they putting color in it, it's just amazing to watch, really.
Like if you pull on the opposite end, say that end, try to at least keep them up the height of these ones, right?
To even the ones that are not involved with our group. Oh, I did that when I was a child, or my mother did that, or my grandmother did it. They did story mats to a certain degree, I guess, but they were used for the floor. And I can remember my grandmother hooking them myself for a long time ago when she did them, and she was an old lady. And she did them and put them on the floors, and they washed them. They were mats to keep the floors warm, I guess.
You can go with this blue all through the splashes as much as you can, and then when that gets done, you can take some of this whitish gray and finish the boat. I'm not totally sure why we needed this line up here, but this is all.
This is the way that it came up here, see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if we should be there.
No, that's fine. It's okay. It's not hurting anything. But
we have a great bunch, and I'm really, really pleased with the group we have. I never thought it was going to materialize so quickly, and as you can see, they're very far ahead with their first rug or first mat, and they're willing to go on to more. So I think it's just going to grow.
When we came out for the first time in October, we went home exhausted. We said, are we going to last? Because the eagerness and the excitement of getting started with this project, it was just so high. Everybody was so excited to get started. It was wonderful. And the second week, it was much the same thing. Everybody was eager. We had a lot to show, a lot to talk about. By the third week, everybody was up and running. We just came for the lunch. After that, we really didn't need to be here because the eagerness, the students were wonderful. I just spoke to Patsy there a moment ago, and she said, my goodness, it feels like graduation day.
Our lives shall not be sweated from birth until life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread, but give us roses.
And my youngest daughter.
And you lace it onto that.
Yeah, you lace that onto that, and these are nails.
I really never even ever expected to do a rug. I thought I'd just hang around and take pictures or maybe write up a few things, you know. So, but, you know, we talked about it, and I had an idea then for what I might do in a mat, and so then began my journey, I guess.
Sew that onto the ends of the thing, just tack it on, and then you can roll this over. Straight like hers.
You know, there were two kitchens on our house. My mother's kitchen was at one end and my grandmother's at the other. But in the evening, there were 8 children in the family, so when people were gone to bed, children were gone to bed, Nan and Mom, and Nan was my mother's mother-in-law in actual fact, they would just get together and they'd have a cup of tea and they'd, you know, make it for each other, or somehow or other these two busy women would find this time to spend together, and they would laugh over nothing. They would laugh over nothing, and you know, life was full of all kinds of challenges, so this was their time, and of course I remembered that, and so it was a nice memory, and so that's what I thought I'd do, because these were two phenomenal women to me. I'm pretty proud of both of them. And in the winter, you know, I remember the top of the stove would be blood red because they'd have such, trying to keep the house warm. And of course, the stove was the only thing that heated the whole house, right? And there'd be, in the wintertime, there'd be lines across with all the sheets hanging down, you know, it's like going through tunnels and stuff. One time my grandmother was up on the kitchen table trying to flick the sheets over the line, and she walked right off the table and broke her wrist. And of course, everybody cracked up laughing, right?
She was an ordinary woman, but she was a very strong woman. So it can get really emotional when you, obviously, when you start to think about it. And it also, it's not just the mat. Then, you know, you show it to your family, you show it to your friends, and and they have a connection with it too, beyond just saying, oh, that's a nice piece of work. So
They are just lovely.
these are
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whose people they are.
Aren't they some nice people?
They're people aboard your boat. That's all that would matter to me. If they're aboard your boat, you can claim them completely.
And the other thing about this image, of course, and in some ways why the stove is so important to me, is after I got a little older, and my grandmother, you know, the good Catholic woman she was, she decided I was too old at age 7 to sleep in the same bedroom with my brother anymore, right? So I had to go out in her room with her, and of course I had a charmed existence, really. But every morning I would get up and go to Mass with her. And those were in the days that you had to fast for 3 hours before you went to communion. And when I came out in the morning, she would have the oven door open. She'd have all my clothes warming on it for me to get into it. She'd have a little scrambled egg done in some toast, put in the oven kind of, you know, covered up for me when I came home from Mass to have my breakfast before I went back to school, right? So that kind of has all kinds of images for me too around that.
What we can do is once you get it all done, if this part looks, we can take stuff out,
right?
You know, just a small patch here out, and put another kind of picture in like that, right? On the other side, if it looks like it, if it's not going to work out, right?
In reality, I'm part of a family, and Scott has Irish heritage, and Maya really wanted to hook another rug, and technically Maya has Irish heritage then by default. And so for me to feel like I have some legitimacy in this hooked rug with Maya, we thought, well, maybe we can incorporate not just our Irish heritage, but other aspects of our family. So when you look around the table, Scott has Irish and Scottish and English blood and German, and I have almost exclusively Mennonite, like Swiss German Mennonite and Japanese blood. And then we also have Bertha, who's joined our family, who has, as far as I know, a complete Innu background from Labrador. In reality, I really do enjoy working with the group. I feel very privileged to get a chance to know a lot of these women that are involved in these projects, because they're not always people I would have run into, but now that I know them, my world of people that I see around are far greater, and this is one unique opportunity where I get to visit with, it's sort of intergenerational, and also where I get to hear people's personal stories. So the stories that are shared are quite deep and profound, and they're meaningful.
It was perfect for me. I couldn't believe I could have gotten so much support from the group of women who were the rug hookers. In the beginning, I mostly had only a nodding acquaintance with them, but they supported me with emails and books and cards and flowers and making meals for me throughout. I wouldn't have been able to survive. I wouldn't have been able to be so motivated to recover, excepting for this group of women whom I, like I said, hardly knew in the beginning.
There was. I remember going down to rug hooking one night, and the girls had said that one of the other ladies was ill. And I remember feeling absolutely, almost gutted, just thinking about it. And that was before I was diagnosed.
And I continued to finish my rug after I was diagnosed, and that was a very good thing because I needed something to distract me, and there was a time limit on the rug and I was behind. So I was at it every day, so it took my mind off it, and you're left, because when you're rug hooking, you're just pulling this fiber and manipulating it and in and out and touching it and tactile, but your imagination is free to roam, so you can go anywhere or do anything while you're doing the rug hooking, which is great.
And we would get these pop-up emails every now and then that they were thinking about us, or good luck with whatever. And you'd go in and people would smile at you. I'd stop for a minute.
Maybe we should bypass this.
No, I just got to get myself together.
Yeah.
But I would see this other lady, and she wore a little pink cap, and I would see her at the cancer center in her little pink cap, and I'd see her at down at the rug hooking, and she'd have her little pink cap on.
And when you'd go in, everybody would smile and ask how you were doing, and it was just very comforting.
Well, it was a coincidence, really, and I couldn't believe it, and I hadn't heard it. I just bumped into Lois one day, and she was wearing a scarf. And I said, Lois, are you in the same condition as me? And she said, yes. So I couldn't believe it, though we didn't see that much of each other during the summer because both of us were going through our own treatments. But the fact that two people out of a group are stricken within 2 months of each other was extraordinary.
And to still be doing something that's life-giving, like you go down to the groups and you hook away, and it's so removed from going in to get your radiation or going in to get your chemotherapy. And it adds depth and colour to your life, and but mostly the friendship things. And from some of these ladies I hardly knew, I would get emails, and it's an amazing thing.